So when you talk about those three different areas of complexity, right? Business complexity, governance complexity, and technical complexity, you're really also talking about different groups within the business, right? We're talking about um, the business processes. So how complex or convoluted are the business processes? And we can have a whole nother discussion that we won't have today around unwinding business processes and optimizing business processes. But that kind of focuses on the business users. When you talk about technical complexity, that may be something that aligns around data locations, integrations. It could also align to number of systems within an overall architecture. And then there's governance complexity, which is more around how are you going to maintain things from an InfoSec standpoint, or HIPAA, or PII. What are some of those things? Did you weight those any differently, or did you think about all of those things kind of as an equal weight when you put together the matrix?
Well, as you pointed out, it starts to get into who needs to be involved, and I think that's in some ways more important than waiting, because all of the complexity actually is important and requires different skill sets. It's just the skill sets in where they sit inside your organization will vary. When you think about business complexity, a lot of the complexity around the business process or use cases, and how that may vary by region or by department. A lot of that is complex, but it actually sits typically inside the business, and so I would argue that the business function or the business group that is sort of sponsoring this no code application probably has a lot of that knowledge in house, right? And so we have this concept of a do it yourself model, right? Where the business team can take on a lot of this because they understand that, and they're in many ways the best ones to make sure they're meeting the needs of the process or the business. When you get into the technical complexity, to your point, there's a lot of technologies and nuances about systems of a record that you're integrating with, or scale of user transactions, right? And so there's things there that do require, in many cases, some amount of technical knowledge, and may require developers. And so we have this notion. It's actually one that Gartner has talked about and sort of coined the term fusion teams, which is it's a combination of both the business and the technologists working together in there's different org models. Sometimes they're embedded inside the business themselves. You just have a developer on loan. In other cases, it's more of a matrix where the development and IT may have a dotted line person that works for the project. So I'm not making a statement about org per se, but it's a combined sort of set of skills and knowledge between development and business. That's sort of the fusion team model. Then there's a third one which we called out, which was some ways trying to make sure that the broadest set of views around sort of the process and the methods get applied, and that it's really around the center of excellence model, which helps support a lot of the more complex governance needs, as you pointed out. It might be external governance, might be internal governance, might be infosec, and also the whole notion. One of the concepts we talk a lot about is around component reuse and composability. I think that's a really key function that the CUE can enable and play. So it's perhaps looking more broadly than just that single project, but how do we anticipate perhaps certain parts of this application either creating reusable components that may be used by other teams, or vice versa, reusing components that may have been built by other teams. So there's a collaboration in a reuse function that the CUE plays. So those three sort of organizational models, the DIY, fusion, and center of excellence, just have important talent that is needed, and they typically sit in different parts of the org. And so we talk about, how do you diagnose, do you need them? That's sort of the first question, and that's really the goal of the app matrix. And then the second part of this is, how do you organize and how do you bring them together into an effort to help make sure that your project is ultimately successful?